Welcome to another wonderful episode of the Husky Huddle Up podcast. I'm really excited to be joining you from, actually today it looks a little gloomy here on campus. I feel like when we've recorded before it's been sunny, but yes, it does rain and get gloomy in Seattle. But my name is Emily Colby. I use she, her pronouns. I'm the director of first year curriculum and engagement in first year programs, and joined by co-host Zack Fairchild. Hi, Zack.
Yes, hello, Emily. You are right. It's a little gloomy up in Seattle today, but still beautiful. And I am so excited to be here with you all. I am the Associate Director of Parent and Family Programs at University of Washington. I use he, him pronouns, and we have a wonderful guest with you all today from the Foster School of Business. We have our Senior Academic Advisor, David Sprengeler. David, how are you today?
Hello, thank you for having me. I am great, and just to reiterate the gloomy weather, but that's why we live here, right? We love this weather, so I'm glad that we are able to have some of this weather return to Seattle, and I'm happy to be here.
Thank you. I know the green. We will bask in the greenness of our trees, our grass. But anyways, I feel like that's a really great segue because you said, why we come here. I am curious to learn a little bit more about you, David, and what brought you to the University of Washington and your role. So feel free to take us on a little journey of your history.
Yes, thank you. So my name is David Sprengeler, and I use he, him pronouns, and I am newer to the UW, actually. As of yesterday was my 1-year anniversary with Foster.
Congratulations.
So, thank
That's
you.
Congratulations.
So,
You're 1 year in.
Yes, and already doing an amazing podcast, which I don't think was an opportunity at my other institution. So briefly speaking on that, I originally hail from Arizona State University. I was born and raised in Arizona. I'm a double devil, as they say, here at the University of Washington, where I have my bachelor's and my master's from ASU. I love higher academics and higher education, so I jumped right in as a student worker in university housing, actually, when I was doing my undergrad, and just loved being around that atmosphere of that college experience and finding yourself. I think that's what's key in college, is who you're going to end up being at the end of this 4-year journey. And so, yeah, I just loved being in that environment, and I eventually became a full-time staff member at ASU and worked in admissions after housing for some time. And then opportunity presented itself to be an advisor in W.P. Carey School of Business, where I was in the School of Business for the last 2.5 years as an advisor. And I was briefly talking about my trip that I went on back in 2021, actually, to Seattle. It was my first trip here, and being a higher education junkie, so to speak, I wanted to tour the different campuses that were in the Seattle area, and UW was one of them. And just seeing the buildings, I mean, yes, they're old, not as old as maybe some back east, but coming from Arizona where everything is newer as of 1912, it's just like older buildings mixed with the greenery of Washington. I just fell in love with it. And in 2022, actually, I had a notification on my phone about the trip I went on in Seattle in 2021, and I was just saying, what the heck, I'm going to go look online and see if UW is hiring, and out of nowhere, an application went into Foster, and before I knew it, I was an advisor here, and now I'm at 1 year, so I definitely do love being here, and it was a change, especially with the weather. But yeah, this is me in a little nutshell.
Oh my goodness, thank you so much. And I really loved how you described the campus, for families who haven't yet been on campus. And to note, as we're doing this podcast, David has a really great background with Founders Hall right behind you. Hall. Which is really beautiful. So I'm not sure where our conversation will end up going, but yeah, talk about the Foster School of Business facilities is really exciting too. But no, thank you for that.
And I saw your face light up, Emily, when you talked about working in housing.
I feel like I know you're at least the second or third third, fourth, I don't know, person who we've talked to that it feels like housing is this gateway into
Yeah.
student affairs. And I will, jump on that bandwagon too. I was a resident assistant as an undergraduate, and it really opens, my eyes to, oh, you can work in colleges. So it's so fun to, get to hear people's stories and how they experienced higher education.
For sure. And that's just speaking on that. I mean, I didn't think there was a whole possibility of all these jobs that are even available in higher ed. And even as an advisor, I wear many hats on any given day. So, like, I'll speak on it a little further, but later on in the podcast. But I'm also a facilitator for our freshman direct seminar, which is BA 490. So, not only an advisor, but I also facilitate one of our classes for our students. And down the road, I might even be an advisor for one of our registered student organizations. So definitely myself getting involved and seeing what else opportunities professionally you can do it in a university.
Yeah, now I've only been here 6 months, but there are so many, even for employees and staff, so many interest groups, so many professional development opportunities that just you could do one every day if you wanted to. But we also have to do work, folks, so we can't do professional development all the time. But we would love to. But David, that leads me to ask you a little bit more, and thank you for sharing your journey here. And I absolutely love it, and I share kind of a similar pathway to the University of Washington. But what in your current role now, or how would you describe your current role now um, in foster and advising, and kind of what maybe like a day-ish looks like for you?
Yeah, so like I mentioned, wearing the many different hats, that's what I love. Not only higher education, but just being an advisor is not every day is the same, and I mean, hour could be different based on the appointment because each student is different, and you're walking into an appointment that you might have a student who is not doing so well in a class, and they're struggling, financially, or family issues might even be something. And then an hour later, you might be helping. I remember this one time where a student was actually screaming, and I didn't know what was going on. And I'm like, "What's going on?" And there's a bee in the building, so it's like, okay, I have to switch and pivot, and now I have to chase a bee out of the building.
Was that in your job description?
Right, yeah.
Professional bee wrangler.
Right.
Exactly. So that's what I love. It's also keeping you young, being around the young students and what they do on the day to day, and their endless possibilities, and their dreams and goals is inspiring, because I know when I was a kid, or a student back in the day, I wasn't thinking like our students, even business students. Um, and so that's one thing that I like to talk about too. But even on the day to day, I mean, every day is different. Like even now we're in orientation season, right? Or A&O. So put on the new advisor orientation hat for a month or two, and then we'll transition into wearing the admissions hat and going through the admissions process with students. So with this position, there's just a lot of hats that you wear, and I just love it. And also interacting with different campus partners. So like this was an opportunity in itself to do a podcast with first year programs, which is an amazing thing, and building those networking opportunities to help our students even more um, just navigate the university.
So you just mentioned the word networking opportunities, and I recognize there's a whole host of opportunities and experiences that students in foster can have. Can you describe maybe a few of the exciting things that students in foster get to do or participate in?
Yeah, so with foster, I like to talk on two different sides, both students who are wanting to apply and also who are in foster. So I think we will cover that a little bit later, but in general, I mean, as a foster student, you have RSOs, registered student organizations, that you can go and be a part of. We have about 30 that have a different range, different topics, different ideals, And you don't even have to be a foster student to be a part of these RSOs. So you could get in already with that business mindset with some of our RSOs. But we also have our foster instructional tutoring, which is called FIT. And that also helps students just um, be better with their classes. So we have courses that are rigorous, right? So we have tutoring for some of those rigorous courses, like our Accounting 215, Accounting 225, also Op Management 301, which is our upper division. And both foster and non-foster students can utilize this tutoring service if you are going through the application process and getting the pre-application courses out of the way. I also like to highlight with our current foster students, we have career services as an option. And I definitely now see career services and advising being hand in hand with my advising appointments, because students not only ask what they need to complete with their degree, but what can I do with my degree and what is my next steps after I get my diploma. And so I highly encourage current foster students to utilize our career services. And then we have our Undergraduate Diversity Services Office, which is for students who are minoritized. So if you fit into a category of underrepresented, we have an office for both foster and non-foster students to go not only help with the application process, but also additional networking opportunities. We have building networks happening right now actually on campus, where we have students who are learning how to build networks, literally in the title. So there's just a lot of things that both foster and non-foster students can utilize.
Thanks so much for highlighting that too, that foster and non-foster, and so the openness as well.
Yeah, I think that's really important because I think folks just think like, oh, foster, oh, I'm not in foster yet, or I'm not there. That's not available to me. But like many things at UW, you just have to know the right people, learn the right info, and then boom, you're in the door.
Yes,
Um,
exactly. And you're all taking that initiative now by listening to this podcast and hearing this. So that's one misconception we also want to debunk. Hopefully, is that we are not accessible. We are. So if you are going through that application process, we are more than willing to have a advising appointment with you to go over your own circumstances. But like I said, I think we'll have time to highlight that a little bit more. But that's one thing that we want to also address is debunking those foster myths.
yeah, thank you for sharing that because we do hear some of those things that that are kind of a myth, and we'd like to kind of break down those thought patterns or those barriers for our listeners to make sure that they know um, how their huskies can get involved in foster and um, some avenues they might take to do so. But a little more about foster, because I am a little newish still. Would you share with us kind of how the foster school started? Maybe when like advising started taking more of a, I would say, a very lead role in students' academic journeys. Uh,
Yeah, yeah,
and
I
I know
can
you're newer,
definitely.
so that this is like a test, David.
Right.
No, there's
This is
no
your
quiz at
first
the end of
test.
this.
No,
Neither for not for David nor our listeners. No
no, there's
test.
no test.
Yeah.
For us
Well,
later, but not it.
right.
Exactly.
Well, I'll gather everyone around. So this is going to be a very long, boring history of Foster. No. So leading, Foster in generals in 1917 is when like business and business administration really was like the theme with business schools, or just business in general. And then later, as we started to progress, I've started to see like other majors get added or a different focus. So, like now, for instance, we have information systems as a business major. So that's tying in the tech. We have operations and supply chain management. So what happened with our pandemic, all those supply chain issues, that's another major that's been added to Foster, but even before the pandemic. We have accounting now, a newer major, which is key. Just learning the accounting language, if you don't want to be an accountant, is the accounting for business professionals. And so I've seen that shift in adding more disciplines or more areas in that business curriculum as we got further down the road in history, so to speak. Foster was named in 2007 the Foster School of Business. Before that, it was just the business school. We are in a new building currently, the Founders Hall, which opened last year, where academic advising is housed among a lot of our other resources. Like I mentioned, the undergraduate diversity services, career services. So I think even the switch in the business mindset of business administration to actually expanding to actually help students from all walks of life who want to study business. So I think that's what's also key is it's not excluding students where in the past, historically, higher education was for a certain demographic of a person, whereas now it's anyone who wants to get an education and is wanting to learn is more than willing and able to, which I love. And that's just what Foster is all about. And I highlight one of our mission statements, or what we believe in, is we foster humanity, we foster progress, we as in us as a whole, not me individually, which I think is also key in this world, is we're focusing more on ourselves and we should be thinking of each other and that humanity aspect, which is also ingrained in the Foster School. So we're not those cutthroat business people that you see in those movies from the 70s and 80s. we are hoping to better humanity with our business practices.
I'm curious, what is your team like? How many other people do you work with? Yeah, and you've talked a little bit about your day to day, but yeah, how do you all work together?
Yeah,
Yeah.
great question. So I love this smaller team. I actually came, as I said, from Arizona State, where my advising team was anywhere between 30 and 50 advisors. Here at Foster School, it's actually 7 advisors. So we also pride ourselves on the lower caseloads of students. And with that advising, we like to touch on those lower caseloads with the capacity constrainment with our major. That's why we're able to provide such high advising experiences for our students. And with that small caseload, we also have an advisor who specifically will advise for our Certificate of International Studies in Business. So even with that, you're getting your own mentor guidance, so to speak, with that certificate in international studies. But we also have a Foster honors advisor. So if you are an honors student or involved in the Foster's honors program or invited for that, you'll have a Foster honors advisor. And then even with the UDS office, we have a full-time advisor that helps with our undergraduate diversity services. So lots of advising and different expertise, but we do have a team of 7, and we love the fact that we can interact with our students literally from the day they step foot on the UW campus until they actually walk across that stage. So I think that is not possible with a lot of other campus partners, and that's what also gravitates those students is the lower caseloads and being able to build that connection with your advisor.
Wanting to highlight on the podcast, we may have families of transfer students. And so, is there specific support that you all provide for those either at the community college or another institution looking to transfer to Foster?
Yes, definitely. So we do have even the transfer students who are coming in from the local community colleges who are wanting to start their Foster journey. So we do have 2 admission cycles for students who are wanting to apply, and that'll be both April 5th and October 5th. And even with that, you can have a prospective advising appointment as a transfer student.
Oh,
But
awesome. Yeah.
yeah, and I also want to speak that on our transfer Thursdays or are interested in Foster, that we have it's over Zoom, and I'll provide the website, which at the end I think we'll do that. But we do have an actual presentation that I actually facilitate. So I'm the head facilitator for that, where we'll go over the full application, the standard application, what's required, those prerequisites, what makes that holistic review, and what encompasses that. So we definitely advocate for our transfer students as well.
I think that's great. And I want to highlight as well the prospective advising appointments. So you don't have to be accepted to ask.
No, you don't. And what we usually I recommend, if you can, is attend the Interested in Foster or Transfer Thursday presentation, and then come to one of our advisors with your questions of what you might not have been able to ask or your special circumstance, because hopefully I'm doing a good job with highlighting the application and the process in those presentations. And then it's just a matter of follow up with that individual prospective appointment of what can I do to be the best I can when I submit my application to foster.
Yeah, and really sounds like you focus down kind of on that, the individual needs and the case by case
Exactly.
differences. So
Exactly. And no
I
student
get that.
is the same. And I like to highlight, like, you don't want to read everything on Reddit, right? You want to come to us.
No,
So
folks,
so so we are the experts.
don't believe everything you read on Reddit, please.
Yeah. Oh, thank you, David, for that. Yes.
David, I have another question for you. Um, and this may be, I'm not sure what your answer is going to be, and I'm genuinely curious. So, do you see like an influx of advising appointment requests any particular times, like
Oh,
maybe
yeah.
midterms or finals, or when is it like a little harder to get an appointment because folks are just like, I need you guys now.
Yes, great question, actually. So, we advisors, because so this is what's a little bit interesting with the foster just admissions. So, we don't touch the freshman direct application whatsoever. So that is all within the UW's admissions. Us advisors actually will be able to look and review the standard admission application. And with that being said, all of April and all of October, we will not be available because we will be looking at your applications. And so we would want all of our time dedicated to those applications. And so during those 2 months, we are not available. We will also have denied appointments. So if you are a student who did get denied foster, you can actually set up an appointment with us, and we can go over your application to see if it is possible to reapply, or what classes you could possibly retake, or maybe it's the writing skills assessment that we need to improve on. So we will also help you with that if foster was a denied appointment. Um, Times that we are also pretty busy, even just with registration. So during those major registration times, we're pretty busy, not only with just prospective but current appointments with current students. Our A&O season, advising orientation season, during that time we're pretty busy. So I would say times that were pretty slow is the summer. So July and August have been pretty chill for us advisors as students are not around. But then it picks back up once the quarter starts. So I would say even the beginning at the end of the quarter, because students are also figuring out if they should drop a class or if they want to switch. So there's those conversations we have as well. So we're busy just depending on the month, but I would say summer's a little bit more lax.
I appreciate the inside scoop on, yeah, the ebb and
Yes.
flow of your office. Do you personally have a favorite time of year?
I honestly love the beginning of the school year. Literally, when we're welcoming all of our new students and you feel that excitement, like even this just first year programs, right? You're building that experience with students, and I look forward to it because I see just what we can provide our students, and giving them the I don't know. It's just exciting. I love the the initial feel of the beginning of the quarter, and who knows, you might even get to see Dubs. I have a photo of Dubs, so that I feel like that's the rock star on campus, right?
Yes, I feel like your induction into campus is a high five with Dubs.
Yes,
Dubs gives
exactly.
the best high fives. Thank you so much, David. I appreciate the insight. Uh, all these little tips and tricks that we wouldn't have known unless he brought you today. So again, thank you for being with us. Are there any distinctions though, when you are chatting with students, planning futures, all those types of conversations when you're talking to a freshman student or a sophomore student or a junior or someone who's about ready to graduate? Are the types of conversations different? Are there any like thematic things that you can think about to kind of prepare our families and parents for?
Yeah, I think especially with business students, and I don't know if this is just students in general too, but I'm seeing a shift of wanting to complete everything now. So there's been conversations of how soon can I graduate? How fast can I get out of this institution and start my life? And I have those conversations on the daily, and I have to tell students, pump the brakes. Like you have a certain amount of time to enjoy your life. You don't want to start paying taxes and paying for all this other stuff if you don't have to. And so it's really trying to just tell the students to chill, and there are other interests, not just in business. Like you might have an interest in psychology, or you might even have an interest in the humanities. Take that time if UW is giving you the time to do that, even if you you are wanting foster, and if you're applying and you think that business is the only thing, try something else. Maybe you might take another class, and it might open up that floodgate of the endless possibilities. So I think that's the big thing that I have my battle with students is they just want to get in and out, and they just want to know what those requirements are, and I also want to highlight that it's building those communication and those networking skills, which is key with just who you're talking with. And I think that's also something that a lot of our students forget when they are having those conversations with professionals too. It's how are you networking yourself, and how are you um, also benefiting just not yourself for the time being, but in the future, because I think that's also key is focusing not only in the now, but later, because what you're wanting to do now might not be necessarily the case 10 years from now. Like, again, I thought I was going to retire at Arizona State University, and I'm chatting it up in Washington right now.
Now
I
you
love
are husky. I know.
it.
For students who are thinking about foster, because you mentioned, skills and communication, are there, so both, because I know we have questions about, technical class aspects and how do I prepare and what are the right classes. But I think, yeah, if there are folks who are listening to this and, how can my husky prepare to enter foster? Like, what are some good experiences, and I'll add the and classes too, but good things for students to do or accomplish,
Yeah.
before entering foster.
Yeah, and I think one thing with a lot of our students who are doing Running Start, or who are graduating and getting associates or have all that college credit, ideally time wise, we would hope that you'd be applying to foster by your sophomore year. You'll look at our admission course requirements, so like the Accounting 215, Calculus, English Comp, and microeconomics. Those would be required just for you to even apply to foster if you're applying. And if you look at the course sequencing, usually that would be your sophomore year, because you also have credit requirements for those classes or restrictions. You also want to do well in those courses because it is a holistic review if you are applying to foster as a standard admit. So we would look at your writing skills assessment test, that score, your cumulative score, and also your the pre-application, or I should say, yeah, the pre-application GPA. And we do have those averages listed historically, and I'll rattle those off now, which I always am hesitant to tell these because as soon as I say it, people either get scared and they think they shouldn't apply, or they say, "Oh no, I'm not even going to attempt this because that's the mini the that's what I'm not going to reach that." And by no means, if you're not meeting those, I would say still apply because it's a holistic review, and if you're not too well in one area, then I always look at your WSA score or your pre-application. So there's always ways that you can improve and be your best self when you apply.
What's the
Um,
WSA again?
the writing skills assessment.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yes, and so with that being said, I'll give you those stats. The right, yeah, don't memorize them. They're, and this is just from this past cycle, and take it with a grain of salt because, like I said, we look at everything when we look at applying students. So, writing skills assessment, that was an average of a 4 this last cycle. A minimum is a 3, is what we require. The cumulative GPA average was a 3.8, and we will require a 2.5 for the application. So see, there's also minimums that we want. So please, if we want those minimums, it's great if you meet the minimums. And then with our pre-application, those 4 courses, it was a 3.88. And so with that, it's just how every application cycle is different. And we do have essay, personal statements, I should say, that you could also utilize. And I like to say that they are the cherry on top of your application because we cannot assume anything on your transcripts. So if you did bad in a class, and if it was because of a family issue, we don't know. We just will see, oh, you didn't do well. So I also highlight the personal statements as also providing a picture for your transcripts or a story for your transcripts as well.
I think that's great. It's great advice and the holistic review. I had a brief moment of admissions work and understanding, CADA requirements and all those minimums. I think uh, is really great because not everyone in higher education in our different roles gets to see that kind of stuff. But you're absolutely right. Those additional documentation pieces, the essay, all those little spaces where you can tell your story, that's where you want to tell your story. And if there's any gaps, fill those gaps in with the information that may be helpful to understand what happened if there um, was something. So thank you for saying that because I think that gets forgotten when folks are applying to things. Is we all have a story, and that's what makes us who we are, and it's important to highlight those things.
Exactly. And picking back off of that as a tip, please edit your personal statements. We've seen a
Yes,
lot of,
yes,
a
yes.
lot of like scholarship essays that were written as a scholarship essay, and they switched the wording. So also chat GPT. I mean, we want to hear from you, not a robot, please.
Thank you. I was just gonna mention, yeah, excited for students to write their personal statement. Yes.
Yeah. Uh, and I know we're coming up close on our time, but David, I talked to you a little bit before we got started today, and I know that there are some myths, maybe some Reddit threads out there that may be saying certain things, but are there any things that you would like to debunk or demystify while you have a very captive audience?
Yes, so definitely first come to your experts, so the foster advisors as a resource. Um, that should be the first thing. Don't run to Reddit and read what you read or see how things are on that land or hearing from friends. Coming to us will be key. And I also want to debunk the myth that we're not available for those prospective appointments. So if you are questioning or have questions, come to us. We are more than willing and open to sit down with you and talk about your circumstances. I also encourage you to go to one of our presentations that we will have on the website, and that'll help with some of those questions as well. and 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 yeah, I think that's the biggest thing that that gets a lot of us kind of saddened is that people think that we're unapproachable or that you can't get an appointment with one of us, and that's not the case. We are available.
Thank you, David. I know, and in this time, I feel like I keep giving you the thumbs up and big smiles, but I so appreciate your openness and your energy in terms of talking about working with students and tips that you're giving. As Zach mentioned, I know that our time is drawing closer to its end, but we have asked you a great many questions, I think some of which you may have been prepared for, and some we just decided to add in. Was there something that we didn't ask and you were hoping we would, or something that, or other things that you came ready to this podcast to share with us and our listeners?
I mean, the big thing is, I would also just encourage using us as networking and that opportunity as a current foster student when things are going bad. I think that's also key too. Is talk to your advisors, talk to your support, whoever you can reach out to, because we want to help you when that first hole in the ship is there and not when there are 20 holes in that ship, because we can only focus on one at a time. And sometimes when you show up late, even, and this is general advice for anyone listening, is utilize your resources and please reach out as soon as something starts to happen, because we can fix the one hole but not 20 all at once.
I almost want our listeners to like pause right there, rewind, and listen to that statement kind of over and over again. Because as you said, just really important advice overall for our new students that, as soon as something comes up and to reach out and to have your web of folks, your network of supports here at the University of Washington. So, oh my goodness, thank you, David, for emphasizing that, for both foster students and then all of our students here at UW. Have we talked about contact information and where, like the socials and the other things?
We have not. So, if you are wanting to get a hold of us, or if you are wanting that prospective appointment, or if you're wanting to just see the website, foster.uw.edu. We also have our email, which is bizinfo@uw.edu. And we have our front desk phone number, which is 206 685 3400. So even if you're a current student, you can utilize the Canvas and the advisor lookup page. So if you did want to speak with your current foster advisor, or if you don't even know who it is, that will be a great starting point for you as well, is to get into to know who your foster advisor is.
That's perfect, and we can also share that all those links with our folks across campus. And just so folks know, Biz Info is BIZ as in zebra info at uw.edu. David, thank you so much for being here and putting up with Emily and I and throwing random questions at you that we certainly did not share with you beforehand. But you did a fabulous job. And I also want to say, and other folks have done a great job this season as well, but every time you threw out an acronym, you followed it up or like posted it up with the actual thing, the actual title. And that is so helpful, especially as like a new employee and our new incoming family, parents, and our new Huskies. Like, what do all these acronyms mean? And there's multiple of the same, but they're different words. And I just really appreciate that clarity in your presentation today. So thank you for that. Thank you for being with us. Emily, is there anything?
Congratulations
Yes,
on your one
congratulations.
year. I
Thank
know, and
you.
I look forward to continuing to get to work with you, David. It's been such a pleasure learning from you and hearing about your journey and all that Foster has to offer as well. Yeah, thank you. And thank you, Zach, as always, too, for our banter
Being
and questions.
your
Always a pleasure.
co-pilot on this journey here of
Yes.
the Husky Huddle Up podcast. Uh, Well, folks, I think that is all the time we have for today. But stay tuned for everybody listening. I think up next we have UW Safety. So we will certainly be taking questions from our orientation sessions that have been coming up, um, important things that incoming Huskies and their families need to know. Will be talked about during that episode as well. So we are happy to have those folks up next. And again, David, thank you so much for being here. That was fabulous. I hope everyone out there has a wonderful rest of your summer, and we will see you next time.
The Husky Huddle Up podcast series is a collaboration between the University of Washington's first year programs and parent and family programs to provide parents and families equitable access to information in support of their Husky success. The Husky Huddle Up podcast is produced by me, Chloe Giselle, a recent graduate from the UW who received a Bachelor's of Arts through the Cinema and Media Studies program.